Hello everyone and welcome to Behind the Manuscript. I'm Cheryl J. Muir of CherylMuir.com. You might notice we have a slightly different background, and that's because we are coming to you from the Lake District. My guest's in Canada, but we're in the Lake District here, so slightly different background today. And today we have with us L.K. Elliott. She is a fantastic author, an amazing author of Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess. She is also a spiritual and fitness columnist and a self-love soldier. She really believes in living a life that you enjoy, that you're passionate about, and she is very passionate about sharing her message of triumphing over negativity and depression. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess, first published book. I want to talk a little bit about your process of writing it and publishing it, but before we do that, let's backtrack a little bit and share what the book is, what the book's about, and your inspiration for writing it.
Yeah, definitely. So Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess was, for me, I felt like I needed to I did have a pretty serious bout with depression and anxiety about 5-6 years ago. And in that time, I was just desperately seeking help. And I was looking for different books, and they were putting me to sleep. They were very dry, very doctor written. So when I was able to find all the tools and find things that worked for me, I wanted to contribute to that same cause. So I wanted to put out a book that was going to be fun to read, not be so serious, be, something for a younger generation that we could really dig into and have a good time. Because I don't think that mental health has to be so serious. I mean, we're all a little crazy. It's totally fine. We all have our hot mess moments. So for me, this book was my journey of getting through my depression, what I learned, and then how readers can take those same lessons and apply them to their own lives.
That's amazing. So we have a lot in common there, given that we've both been reading a lot of self-help in our time. I've certainly read a lot myself, but I haven't actually wrote it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your process, how long it took you to write it, what your discipline was for sitting down and writing it. Just share a little bit about that with us.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for me, and I don't know if this is the same experience for everyone, but for me, writing Confessions, it was just as much a self-help journey for myself. I found that I did a lot of healing through that process. So when I was writing my childhood chapter, I was going through my own childhood things. I was taking that advice as I was going through. And I honestly, when I read through the book now, I can almost see the sense that I made from the first chapter to the last chapter. So that was really interesting. And for me, I set out the 10 steps to beat stress and feel your best. So for me, I took the 10 steps that I transformed in my life, and I just broke it into those different chapters. So for me, it was I think it all flows together and it's all important to work on. But for me, when I was writing the book, I definitely broke it down into the 10 chapters and kind of focused on one at a time.
And did you write it sequential? Was it in order, or was it kind of as it came to you?
Yeah, it was just kind of as it came to me. Definitely. And my inspiration, every day something would pop up and it'd be like, oh yes. And then it would kind of just start triggering things. So I do feel like the content was delivered to me as it was, as it was flowing. And then eventually between me and my publisher, we came together and put it in a good shape for people to digest.
Now we met on Instagram originally.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of discussions offline, and one of those discussions was around the publishing process and how we both self-published, but we use kind of a hybrid self-publishing model. Now, I know that was something that was really important to me because I knew I'd get that kind of hands-on help, but why was it important for you to take that route in publishing your first book that way?
Yeah, so I'm totally going to just take this from Gala Darling. I absolutely love her, and she said something that made so much sense to me. She said, don't wait for someone to choose you. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you really believe in your product, in your writing, in your book, for me, I needed people to read it because I knew that there was people out there that were just like me, who were hurting inside and didn't know how to move forward, how to get through it. So I needed people to have the book. And so I wasn't going to wait for someone to choose whether the book was valuable or not. I put it out there on my own. With the hybrid, I think I love self-publishing, but I didn't want my book to look self-published. So that's where the hybrid came in. And they did so much amazing work for me, and it was a really great process. And I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's looking to publish their book.
That's amazing, and I felt completely the same. And I with Angel of the Night, it was a completely different thing in that it's fiction, but I was the same. I didn't want to be chosen, and I didn't want anyone to tell me how the story was going to be told. I thought, no, this is my story, and I want to tell it my way. And I'm sure it was the same for Confessions. It's such a personal story. It's people looking at it as a publisher, looking at it as a business decision, isn't necessarily reflective of your personal journey in writing it. And so I completely agree. There's so much power in telling your story your way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So publishing a book, it's an absolutely amazing feeling to hold that book in your hands, and you know, it's got your name on it, and you think, oh, I wrote this is amazing. But it's also no walk in the park, and you learn a lot along the way. So if you could, you know, hop in the DeLorean, I know we're both 80s kids, hop in the DeLorean and go back in time and speak to your former self when you first started writing it, what would you tell her? What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
Definitely. I think there's definitely a lot of things. If we could all go back, it's hindsight's always 20/20. But for me, I think the two things I would do very differently is I would work on building my platform much sooner in the process. I feel like I kind of put the buggy in front of the horse when I wrote Confessions, because I had this amazing book, but I didn't have a platform to promote it. So I was kind of doing a lot of backtracking. And so this year I'm actually going to be relaunching the book. Because I feel like I've got a little more ground. I'm just going to celebrate the book birthday by doing a relaunch. So definitely that's something I would do differently. And something different is when I was writing it, Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess is very much my story. And it involves my family. It involves a lot of in-depth, honest, raw stories. And I do think if I could go back, I might have been maybe a little bit more delicate in the way that I presented my stories. And I know a lot of the readers really appreciate the honesty, and because they can relate to it. But just to be a little more conscious of how that affects other people. Because in that time, it was like, well, whatever, you guys did it, so I'm going to say it, it's my story. But I think now in hindsight, I might have got a little more gentle and, just to be kinder to other people. But I learned that it's just a part of the process.
Absolutely. And I think it's so brave to put your story out there, especially when it involves other people. And it starts almost crossing over a little bit into kind of memoir genre. And I think self-help does a lot of the time. If you look at what Gabby B has done so beautifully, Gabby Bernstein in things like Spirit Junkie and The Universe Has Your Back, which I've just finished reading recently. What she does so beautifully is she does infuse that self-help and those kind of steps with her own personal journey. So it's not memoir, but it has little pieces of that. So my question is this: what do you think the secret to writing successful self-help is?
It's so hard to pinpoint it, because I do think that coming from an honest, authentic point of view, I think that is so important. I think if you're going out there and you're saying, well, do this and do that, I don't think people are going to connect to it. I do think that our stories heal people. I think that that's very important. But I also think that, if somebody's writing a self-help book, I don't think that there's one, special sauce. I think that every single person has their own voice, and you could hear something. I know me personally, I've heard somebody give me the same advice, or different people. I've heard 10 people tell the advice, and for some reason that 10th person said it in a way that just clicked for me, and it hit my inner ding. And so I just think that whatever you have, somebody is looking for. And I think that everyone has something that they can offer this world in a totally beautiful way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's so right. There are times when somebody can say something again and again. It might be someone close to you, you're a mom or a friend, but it can be a random stranger who says something to you on a bus, and it just hits you and you never forget it. And we can be that voice for readers as well as we're writing our stories.
Absolutely.
So one thing that as I'm kind of looking out the window here and looking at this view I kind of grew up with, it's really amazing coming back to the town where I'm from and seeing how this place has shaped me as a person hugely and impacted me as a writer as well. Now, you're from a small town too, on the west coast of Canada in BC. Tell me a little bit about how that background in a small town influenced you as a person and as a writer.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things. I think we're all shaped by where we come from. You know what I mean? And obviously my book is very much based on my life experience, which all happened there. So obviously my childhood was hugely influential in the book. And that was where I identified a lot of my own issues. So I think my upbringing definitely influenced who I became and how I wrote this book. I know I haven't been back in such a long time, and yeah, when you say that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how I would feel to go back, because those small towns are not that good for a hot mess, because we get into a lot of trouble and everyone knows it. Like, before you can even go home, your parents know what's going on. But yeah, I'm really grateful, and that was kind of a part of my healing process, was looking back at my childhood and my past with much more gratitude and healthy reflection of how wonderful it really was. So I'm really grateful that I grew up there, and definitely I'm happy with how I turned out. So I'm happy with everything that's happened in my life, definitely.
And that's the key, isn't it? Even though we've had our struggles, and I know similarly we've both been through traumatic experiences and been through, challenges with mental health, which has shaped us, but it's hard to regret what's happened in the past when you look at who you are, and you can look at yourself in the mirror and say in a very, candid way, I love who you are and I love who you've become and I'm proud of you. And so with that in mind, what we've been through has shaped us, so it's very difficult to regret that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So what's next for you in terms of books and business, and what's next?
Definitely. So this year, like I said, I'm going to be relaunching Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess, which I'm super excited about. And I'm going to be focusing my attention on a lot more online courses. It's one of those things that, even, and I try so hard not to coin myself this, but sometimes, I hold myself up to this self-help author type of title. And I'm like, well, I should just be brave and I shouldn't be scared. But with anyone in life it's always like a moving target. We're always learning more and growing more. And even myself, I've really battled with different forms of fear, even forms of like fears of success. And so that's something that I've had one hell of a year in 2016, which I think everyone has. And definitely that's something that I came out of 2016 with, is much less fear. So this year, whatever I go for, it's going to be big. I'm going big, doing my courses, and I'll be having a webinar coming up soon too, which I'm really excited about.
That's really, really exciting.
Yeah.
So finally, wrapping up now, this has gone so quickly and I wish I could talk to you all day. Where can people find your beautiful book, and whereabouts on the internet can they find you and your work?
Definitely, yeah. So Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess is available on Amazon. I also have my own signed, personalized copies on www.lkelliott.com. And if they want to check me out, I am absolutely obsessed with Instagram, and that's at lk.elliott. So it's ELLIOTT, double, like a coffee. I don't know if that's a Canadian thing or if other people.
I can translate it. I'll put it down below in the description.
Have little subtitles.
Yeah, exactly. Some Canadian slang.
Exactly. So, and then I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Confessions of an Ex-Hot Mess.
Beautiful. And I hope people do check you out on Instagram, because that's where we met. And I know you have an absolutely beautiful presence there, and your energy absolutely translates to your images and your words on there. So I hope people do follow along with you there.
Thank you so much.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. This has been amazing. We finally got to hang out. It's incredible.
We did. Thank you for watching Behind the Manuscript. We've had a bit of a break over December, January, New Year time, but we are now back to our regular programming of one new episode every 2 weeks. So subscribe to be updated as soon as we have new episodes available. Sending you guys much love, and we'll see you next time.